Arsenal win back possession, and it's broken nicely to Cazorla, 30 metres from goal, plays it to the edge of the area. Alexis Sanchez goes for goal and scores. That's a brilliant goal from Alexis Sanchez. He's been Arsenal's star man this season, and maybe now they're going to get the right.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gooners in the USA podcast. Today I am joined by my regular co-host, Mike, and our guest of the week, Phil West. Welcome, lads.
Hey.
Absolutely. There wasn't, for the FA Cup quarterfinalists, that was not as energetic of an open as we would want. But, I'm always going to complain unless you break Skype with your voice. But we're
when we score 6 against Bayern, then I'll break Skype with my voice.
We'll just have an hour of screaming. But this pod is taking place a couple hours after the Sutton win, so we will of course get to that. But first, by way of introduction, we're happy to have accomplished author Phil West with us. I had the pleasure of meeting Phil in person last week at Gooner, where I did a podcast from on the Sunday. But it was just Phil, me, and about 200 of our closest Gooner friends hanging out and enjoying Goonerdom, I would say. But had a great time. Actually, been corresponding with Phil online for a little while, back and forth, and it was nice to finally meet you in person, Phil.
Absolutely, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you are a accomplished writer for many outlets, including the official Major League Soccer. Don't correct me if I'm wrong about being accomplished. I'm speaking of actual outlets. Major League Soccer website, a magazine called Howler Magazine.
Excellent magazine called Howler, and I write for their website, which is actually whatahowler.com.
whatahowler.com, which and in fact your most recent article for them, I think, was a great recap of the week at Gooner.
It was indeed. Yeah.
And you will always what do they say about flattery is the most what's the expression again? Oh, imitate. No, that's not even what I'm looking for. But flattery will get you on the podcast, is what they say.
Right. Okay, good.
Because you did include a nice quote from me at the end. And also a book called The United States of Soccer, which chronicles the first 20 years of the MLS, kind of the rise in domestic soccer fandom here in the U.S. that coincides with that, and a special emphasis on the evolution of some of the best-known supporters groups, kind of the ultras, if you will, of the MLS. Anything I'm missing there, Phil?
Yeah, ultras has a connotation. Anytime there's a group called the Ultras, they're usually trouble, and they usually don't like to talk to media all that much. But yeah, no, it definitely talks about supporters groups. It definitely talks about the rise of the league, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to write. And then I'm working on another one right now about don't laugh, how the U.S. men can win the World Cup.
So it's a very long book. Either that or it's a very short book.
Yeah. Here's what we do. No. It should be really fun. I mean, I'm starting the research process on that right now. I'm gonna talk to a couple of Sporting Kansas City folks who've been on the national team tomorrow as part of that. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. And in the meantime, when I'm not doing that stuff and when I'm not teaching at a couple of different places, including UTSA, and when I'm not doing kind of professional writing, helping nonprofits and folks like that, I'm sneaking in little Arsenal watches here and there for my favorite team.
When you're not doing any of that stuff, you're just sitting on your ass with all your free time, right? I mean, it's
exactly.
Clearly. Well, thank you, Phil, for coming on. I appreciate it. So, I mean, clearly your involvement with domestic soccer in one form or another is long-standing and very rich. But where does your awareness and participation in kind of international club soccer fandom begin, and especially, where and why Arsenal?
Really, 98 World Cup is what got me kind of plunged into it. I mean, I've been aware of it. I mean, since the 70s. I grew up in Seattle. So I was a Sounders fan kind of way back when they were the NASL Sounders. I remember seeing the Soccer Bowl on a black and white TV in the mid-'70s with the Sounders against Pele and the Cosmos, beat by Pele and the Cosmos. But yeah, Thierry Henry is really what got me interested in Arsenal in particular. Didn't really get on the Arsenal train until about the mid-2000s, in part because really hard to get a lot of English football when you're living in Texas, which I was doing during that time. The 2002 World Cup was actually really foundational for me. It was my my now 15-year-old was a young tyke about 3 or 4 months then. I was doing bottle feeding. The only thing that was really on TV about 2:30 in the morning were live games from the South Korea and Japan World Cup. So,
I was doing some bottle feeding during that World Cup myself.
So that kind of
food poisoning.
You don't even understand. U.S. Mexico. My wife rolls down the stairs at 5:30 in the morning, our time, East Coast time, and immediately sees like 12 to 15 bottles of food poisoning on our counter, and turned around and went back upstairs with the baby. my now 15-year-old as well. Yeah, that was a month of shifting what time you went to bed and what time you woke up to watch that stuff. I remember.
For sure. So yeah, so that's what started it, and just I've been kind of headlong into Arsenal for the last few years, and have the tattoo, and still waiting to celebrate my first trophy.
And the purple jersey. I forget who was on the back of it, but
it's Cazorla. Yeah, it's a Cazorla Purple Rain.
Yeah, I know. I have a Walcott Purple Rain, but I know you were sporting the purple jersey in New Orleans, which not a ton of people really brought with them. So that was positive points.
Kind of why I did it. Yeah.
Well, you have to do that every once in a while. So was Gooner Gras? I mean, you were in California for the summer tour, right?
I was in for San Jose. I had to go home before the LA trip. And there's a big thing on Arsenal America Fan, for the MLS site that I did last year, which you can still find. Yeah. If you just go to my page and flip around, eventually you'll see that, or you should be able to Google search it. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to write. I was talking to a lot of folks, obviously, responsible for Gooner Gras and responsible for putting the Arsenal America tours together, and some of the San Antonio folks who were on the craziest.
Yeah, San Antonio is definitely, this past weekend, did nothing to stop the acceleration of themselves as the absolute craziest supporter group that we have, in a good way. But they're something to behold. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I was out for that, and then I was out for the original America tour in 2014. I guess when they play the Red Bulls.
Yep. So how would you describe the experience? I mean, like you weren't so much. I mean, you obviously wrote an article about Gooner Gras, but you weren't there to work necessarily as much as you were there to just kind of enjoy and have a good time, which I saw you having. And but I mean, how would you describe that kind of an event to somebody who either hasn't come to one, or I guess if you're closer to the team and closer to London on a regular basis, you're probably less going to just huge fan meetups and more just kind of going to the pub or going to the games. I mean, what did you take away from that weekend?
I mean, there's just a real goofy camaraderie about it, which I really like, and that's developed even more so now. I mean, there's so many more people. I went to the one in 2015, so not the original one, but the one after. I was picking up a wedding license, and so then got married the next week in New Orleans. And yeah, we live in Austin, but we did a destination wedding in New Orleans and had everybody come, and there were 2 Mardi Gras parades that rolled by our reception. And then the next morning we got up for the NLD at 6:30 in the morning down at Finn's and invited the whole wedding party. And nope, it was just my wife and I, and that was the 2-1 not win. So that was not so much fun. But and I think the game for the 15 one was a Chelsea game, which was kind of just I think it was a draw. I don't know. It was I'm a little vague on that, but no, this year, I mean, it was really fun. I mean, Crew de View is an incredible parade, which I definitely recommend to anybody going to Mardi Gras. It's the first weekend, so it's not in with the others, but it's particularly bawdy and particularly kind of politics driven. Trump was the butt of a lot of jokes. No pun intended.
Yeah. No, it just
maybe pun intended. But yeah, it was just really lively and fun and vibrant, and just chance to get out with a bunch of your favorite Gooners and see how many times you can do Arsenal chants over the weekend, which, as it turns out, is quite a lot.
And I've said it a million times. I mean, with the team in their recent run of form, it's easy to kind of get frustrated and down on Arsenal overall and just kind of start to get on tilt a little bit. And this was the perfect timing for a weekend like this to just kind of, give you a little bit of a reminder that, what's happening on the field is crucial and it drives your emotions. But every once in a while, there's something about being an Arsenal supporter that isn't on the field, and it's definitely worth participating in. So, it was good to see you there. Shall we go into our podcast in general, Andy?
Yeah. I feel like the step-headed child that didn't get invited to the family reunion, Except that you were invited, and you were invited over and over again, and you bailed for some family reasons. I guess. I know. Woe is me.
Wah, wah, wah.
So this week, or last week I should say, there was a story that hit the headlines over here. I'm not sure if it made its way over to the rest of the world. But the story is the Philadelphia Union, a MLS team, are hiring a chief tattoo artist for their club. Mike, this is not a joke. This is a legitimate position that they are hiring for. Now, I don't know if this person is going to work just for their players or if it's going to be open to the public, but if you and Phil had the opportunity to hire one position at Arsenal, just because, what would that position be and why?
Well, first of all, does the chief tattoo artist have like a staff of like sub tattoo artists that he oversees, or he or she oversees, or is it just one person?
I think what the deal is they're trying to contract with the shop and they're just calling it a chief tattoo officer, but the person will be apparently on call to fulfill any of the union players.
The chief tattoo officer. So I mean, basically everybody, all the players on the team, by the end of the season are just going to be completely covered in tattoos. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Well,
even if you don't want one, you're going to get one.
No, like you're going to wake up one morning. Well, my stock answer, if anyone asked me about positions, I mean, if I could have any position at Arsenal, it would be reverse cowgirl. I mean, that's my favorite position. So, but I don't think that's what you meant. I've got two, actually. The first one, someone that we've needed for a long, long time. What's the thingy called where you have someone that like works on the player's fitness and you try to help them to avoid soft tissue injuries and then get them like fit quickly again after they get hurt? I forget what that's called, but like a physio or something like that. I think that's a position I would hire just because clearly we don't have one. Another thing that we don't have is, and this is a little more serious of an answer here, a director of football. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said it. We need a director of football.
I have a candidate.
I was about to say, after today's match and seeing David O'Leary sitting with Ivan, maybe that's the route we're going to go.
So, Phil, who would you bring on to the club if you could hire a position?
My idea is to have a vice president of outlandish transfer rumors. Arsenal kind of has that already, but you'd give a guy, basically, he's got 3 buttons on his phone. One speed dials Metro, the second speed dials the Sun, and then the third just converts all of his calls to tweets that automatically DM Tancredi Palmieri.
Now that is the answer that we were looking for. I came up lame on this one, but that, yeah, we definitely need that because we need them properly channeled through the right.
It'll be so much fun. Hey, here's how Messi's going to happen.
Excellent, Andy.
Well, I was going to go with a director of football as well as my serious answer, but I'm going to kind of stay in the same avenue as the Philadelphia Union, but I'm going to hire a chief dance artist. And I don't feel like we have very good goal celebrations. Like today, Theo scored and did nothing. So I'm going to bring in a professional dancer that's going to get our boys up to speed. And after every goal celebration, there's going to be unison dances. Maybe bring out a dancing ribbon. Maybe
dancing ribbon, like that last event of the gymnastics at the Olympics every year.
Like maybe some rings that they're going to use, like and 2 or 3 players get together and they do like a juggling thing. I don't know, but it's going to be marvelous and beautiful. And that's what I thought.
Flick those plates up off their feet into their head and shit.
Absolutely, because if we're playing like shit on the pitch, if we do get a goal, even if it's a consolation goal, I want there to be magic after.
Can you stash those props behind the goal?
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be a big bucket. And, players will run over. First thing they grab out is what they use. It's going to be like
Gallagher's bucket that he had under the table when he did his comedy.
So, a little bit's going to be impromptu because, in their mind, they may think, oh, I can dancing ribbon, but the first thing they grab out is something completely different. And then they, on the
watermelon.
Spot, they got to do something.
Nice.
So that's my answer.
All right. Well, Philadelphia, you have nothing on Arsenal. We're coming for you.
So
we're coming.
We're not coming for Bayern, and that's what we're going to move on to. So great segue, Mike. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Terrible performance, terrible scoreline. It's been beaten to death. But let's give it a quick couple minutes.
Couple go-rounds. I mean, we're certainly not going to break down the game. Everyone saw it, and it's been nearly a week, and about every podcast and media outlet and MySpace and Twitter and all that have picked the game apart completely already. So I do want to give a quick shout-out, though, and thank you to Tom at the Gooner Talk TV for having me on their show last week. It gave me the opportunity to kind of get some of the frustration off a couple days after the Bayern match. I was on there with Kenny and Drew, had a great time, and we should be looking to return the favor by having them on our podcast next weekend. But so I'm not frustrated about it anymore. I'm just sad. I'm just sad about it at this point.
Yeah, it was one of those games where you could tell off of our recent form we were going in at kind of a low. But, if you look at the stats from the game, specifically the possession, which is how we play, we're a possession team, to have 75% possession to Bayern, 25% to us, that already is just horrific to begin with. But it was just one of those weird, we just sat super deep. We tried to kick the ball long to Alexis. We don't play that way. We completely played Ozil out of the game from playing that way. It was just one of those, unbelievably bad games all around. I don't think there was one shining light from the game. There wasn't one player that stood out where you're like, holy shit, that guy was, the difference. For me, Ospina made it 5-1 and kept it from being 10 or 11, but he still let in 5 goals. And so you're like, our best player on the pitch let in 5 goals and was probably our man of the match,
Yeah, that's an embarrassing outcome. And the center midfield, of course, is something that gets a lot of scrutiny. And in this case, it was a return to the early post-Santi days of Coquelin and Xhaka. Mm-hmm. And, a lot's been made out of the relative position between these two, and that Coquelin seems to be getting further forward than Xhaka, which is kind of the opposite of how you might have expected it to be. And it's continued in this game again. I mean, looking at the heat maps between those two guys, Coquelin's heat map significantly shaded in a V that the peak of the V is way over the midfield line into the Bayern territory in a game where we only had the ball 25% of the time. Mm-hmm. And virtually no time spent in his own half, camped out between the 18 and the center line where you'd kind of expect him to be. Meanwhile, Xhaka's heat map looks like a bowling ball placed right in that area, the edge of which barely even makes it into Bayern's half. So, I mean, what's going on here with is it Wenger or Coquelin that's trying to convert Coquelin into a number 8 or practically a number 10? Why is that happening?
Or is Coquelin is he just freelancing too?
Yeah, I mean that's why I said is it Wenger or Coquelin?
I can't believe that Arsene, with the manager and as stubborn as he is, would allow that to keep happening if that wasn't a plan for him. Where if you looked at today's match, I haven't obviously seen a heat map, but I felt like El Nini played a lot closer or to the defensive line than Xhaka did today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that's a game plan that Coughlin and Wenger and the team are working on. Now, Mike, you had a statistic when you were on Gooner Talk TV, and what was it like? We're 10 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws when Coughlin is not playing?
Oh, yeah. 10-0-0 when he doesn't play. I guess today we can make that 11-0-0.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just in all competitions, we don't lose when he doesn't play. And I hate those negative
We're
stats
not bashing. We're not bashing him because he's a great player, but I don't think what we're highlighting is
let's not go overboard here.
Well, we're not bashing the cock, so to speak.
Speaking as someone who just 2 months ago said and loudly pronounced to the world that I love cock, all of a sudden he's gone limp.
He's got
me in a sticky situation.
Oh God! I wonder if he's gone limp because he's not being utilized to his strength.
Realistically, I'm starting to wonder if Coughlin is turning into a slightly better, much less funnier Emmanuel Frimpong. I miss that guy. Frimmy was, at least he made, you could tell he made Ox laugh and keep the joy in the game for him. Those two were like fucking Abbott and Costello, but.
Right. I was going to say, I trust Flamini to make striker-like runs, but Coughlin, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, but Flamini has actually scored a goal in his career. He scored a handful of them. Coughlin still.
Spurs, I can remember the volley that he
took. Oh my God, the volley! Yeah, that was gorgeous.
So Coughlin, I know that you want to break your duck. I would like for you to break your duck, but let's not sacrifice our entire season with you trying to do it.
Let's maybe play that way against Palace and against Bayern. Let's hold back a little bit. Now, another statistic that I thought was absolutely shocking, Mike. Only Mustafi had more touches for Arsenal against Bayern Munich than Ospina. So Mustafi measured 46 touches and Ospina measured 45 touches. Isn't that?
Although
and another shocking statistic, and I don't have the exact number, most tackles won from any Arsenal player on the pitch was from Ozil.
Yeah, which is amazing because you don't really expect him to be winning that number. Now, does Ospina's 45 touches include the 5 times he picked the ball up out of the back of the net?
I don't think so.
So then technically he had 50. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and perhaps the biggest stat of all, Arjen Robben pulled an Arjen Robben. Game over. I mean, let me just say, how can you let that happen? I mean, it's poor preparation. Guys, if you had a party and invited some dude over to the party and all of your friends told you, hey, Andy, hey, Phil, that guy's going to kick you in the nuts at some point during your party. It's not an if, it's a when. He's going to try to kick you in the nuts. Don't you think, for that night's party, you'd, kind of keep an eye on where that guy was and keep your hands somewhere near your balls at some point and, just be prepared?
Or wear a cup or something.
Yeah.
Something. I mean, the cup is equivalent to maybe don't let him have 10 feet of space anywhere near the box. I mean, that the fact that could happen with, Andy's fetus knew that was going to happen, and yet Coughlin, Gibbs, and Iwobi and Ozil couldn't stop it.
No, Ozil didn't even try. I mean, he just watched him do it, but he's not paid to watch him, or excuse me, he's not paid to try and stop him. But yeah,
I keep hearing about what he's not paid to do.
Right.
That seems to be a theme here. But yeah, I mean, so many people were. Mustafi was dreadful.
Yeah,
Iwobi was overwhelmed by the occasion. Ozil, I've heard a lot of. I'll talk about him in a little bit, but in the 77th minute of that game, there was a sequence where he lost me. I mean, he lost my optimism, my willingness to excuse away his poor run of form. And I'll talk about that a little later. But Coughlin, we talked about that. It was just a sham. There's only looked like 2 people who were really trying from a work rate perspective. One of them, of course, was Alexis, and the other was, in my eyes, Ox.
Oh yeah.
And I felt terribly for him at that. Giving the ball away for the 5th goal while he's playing central defense for whatever reason. But
so many people were were like, what the fuck is he doing giving the ball away there? And I didn't think that. I thought, why is he the only one back there defending? Like, I understand he's playing central midfield towards the end of the match, so he's pulled into a position to drop that deep. But I completely agree, and I don't know if you saw the video going around of his tantrum.
He was at the very end.
Yeah, and then
now, do you like that or do you not like that?
I like that because it's the exact same thing that Alexis has been doing. He turned in frustration to his teammates saying, "Where the fuck are you? I'm the only one here working." And if it's okay for Alexis to do it, it should be okay for the Ox. And what frustrates me, and I said this to Eric, is I'm kind of off the Ozil bandwagon right now because he has all the skill and ability in the world, and he lacks that heart of the Ox. And the Ox is completely different. He lacks the ability and skill that Ozil has, but he makes up for it with his work rate. And I wish you could just morph the two of them together and give half of the passion and half of the skill to one another, because then we've got two great players. But what really pissed me off, Mike, was that the Ox was the only player to fully walk over to the away support and give him a clap. Bellerin kind of went about halfway, but the Ox went all the way to the end line, and not one other player did. And I'm sorry, but if you're Arsene, you're on that sideline, and you're stopping your players from going to the tunnel, and you're saying, get over there, because these people have paid a lot of money to travel and watch you play like a bunch of assholes. And so I was a little disappointed there, too. I thought that was a real bitch move by a lot of players.
Disappointed. I was physically ill over that. That's disgusting for, to treat your fans like that. And our friend Jeff Lancaster over in England said, that with the £300,000 that we weren't allowed to give Sutton for today's match, they should reimburse the people who traveled to Munich for that garbage.
Seriously.
And, their hotel, their drinking their sorrows away that night. All that money spent should be reimbursed to those guys because they just got spit on essentially after the game by the majority of the team. Phil, what do you think about the little tantrum from Ox? Did you see it at the end of the game? I mean, he basically just throwing his arms up and stomping his feet, and you could look at that as being petulant, or you could look at that as a guy who's just tired of not having people around him that try that hard. But I mean,
I'm fine with people being frustrated. Yeah, I mean, it's a time for frustration right now. I mean, that was a terrible loss.
Yeah,
and again, I mean, like even in the first half where joy and laughter was still a possibility. There were some really frightening moments in the first half that just carried over to the second. You saw, I mean, again, like kind of with Ozil, I mean, the one image I have of Ozil is him like not being able to run down a ball out of bounds. And what about that reaction? I mean, would you say that's petulant, or would you say that's well-placed frustration?
Again, I think it's both. I think it's a bit of both. It's so hard to read some of these players right now, especially those guys that are like Ozil, who's not under contract or his contract's expiring. It's just you're trying to figure out, like, is he just done and he's like, fuck it, I'm going to get paid and just finish this, or is he thinking like the team's not playing the way I need it to highlight my strengths? I mean, Mike, I know I just said it before, but his job is not to run back and defend. Right?
No, it's not. But if he's back there, he could try.
Absolutely. I completely agree. But
he's defending a corner and he's back there and the ball's bouncing around 5 feet away from him and he's just standing there watching the guy run away from him rather than putting a body on him. I mean, he can't literally be standing out there determining what is and what is not his job. When you're on the pitch and you're in a position, you have to put some heart to it, and you have to trust your teammates to do their job. But when you're the second best player, arguably, on your team, sometimes you have to just put them on your shoulders and go. And that's just not the kind of guy he is, and I think we're all learning that.
He had the most tackles, though, right?
Yeah, and he typically has the most yards or meters covered in a match as well, so we know that he works. It's just
which defeats the narrative about him 100%. It
does, but his narrative though is to not necessarily run to tackle a player, it's to run to open space And that's the hardest thing you can train a player is to mark space so when the counter does come, you're in space and ready to receive the ball. And so he just was played out of that match. And I'm frustrated too. I'm not making excuses for him. I wanted him to get himself played into the game, but the whole thing just fell apart. So Champions League dream is over. It sucks that it's Groundhog's Day again, and we just keep getting absolutely annihilated by these teams in the round of 16, where, up until 2005, we would always look to play at least until the quarterfinals.
But a few years later, I remember some games against Roma, against Milan, where we'd be getting into the final 8, a couple times the final 4, and it's just not. We're not at that level anymore, which is maddening. But yeah, that game now on March 7th is kind of a huge pain in the ass now, coming in between. Who would have said that the home leg against Bayern was going to be a distraction to the game against Liverpool the week before and the game against Lincoln the few days later.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I think that you have to put out a side that's going to at least try and challenge Bayern. But I think the biggest thing is you want to limit injury. But we'll do a typical Arsenal. We'll probably win 3-0. We'll bring
a lot of people. I was going to say.
We'll bring it.
That is the most popular predicted score, I think, because it would be the most painful way to go out.
Oh, absolutely. So let's move on. Let's move on to Sutton. Let's move on to the FA Cup. And I was really excited for this. I was super nervous the whole day, but loved the build-up. Seeing the team standing in that tiny-ass tunnel or hallway.
Oh, my God.
Preparing to walk out on the pitch. That's what the FA Cup's about. They were walking out.
I love a pitch where they have to put the gates down on either side so that the players can walk through unfettered, because that's the same pathway that the fans use to get to the concessions.
Well, they
had that at Bournemouth when I went to see a game there, and they had to close it down so that Gideon and Iwobi and all that could get to their little crap locker room, and I just love that. Cause
I don't know if you noticed, but in the second half, as Lucas was walking out, there was a dude on his phone, and he looked up and he was like, "Oh shit, the Arsenal team are right next to me." You could just tell he was just a supporter standing there.
Did you recognize Lucas as being on the Arsenal team?
So all in all, pretty dire performance considering we were playing against a team who are 17th in the Conference League. We still won, but Mike, how do you feel we performed today?
I'm willing to give a pass for today. I also love the whole pregame feeling. The spectacle of the whole thing, and given that within the past few weeks we've kind of had a sudden and little fleeting friendship with the Sutton lifestyle, with the backup goalie, with the bloggers and all that. I just felt happy for them to have this whole day. I not so happy that I would have been rooting for them to win or get a result, but it just seemed neat. And frankly, I think they can look in the mirror and feel like today was a major success. They did themselves proud. And it is what it was.
I think they have a mirror in the
yeah, that's true. They can look at each other in the locker room and feel proud about it. But it was what it was. Safe passage through a tie that, it was tricky for so many reasons, most of which non-footballing reasons. We looked like a team that was playing on an oddly sized pitch against players that they had, really no idea what to expect from, with players that they're not used to necessarily playing with.
Right.
And, having to slog through 90 minutes where literally they had everything to lose and very little to win. And they looked like a team that felt the weight of those expectations, was patient enough to try to figure it out, took a couple of chances when they had them, and got the job done. I'm certainly not going to slate Arsenal for not winning 6-0 in this game. They did what they had to do. They're going to have to bring a lot more to their future games than this in order to win. But on the day, I think they did fine, and I hope Elneny's not too seriously injured, because that would be the shame of it.
Mm-hmm. So, Phil, I'll go to you on this one.
All right.
First goal was a shot/pass into the box. Without Theo making a run towards goal, the keeper picks that ball up. So
probably.
Absolutely. So I thought that we were really lucky for that goal to go in, but I also want to give Theo credit, because you have to make that run across. Well, hold on. You have to make that run across to throw the goalie off. So, Phil, do you feel like that was a lucky goal? Do you feel like it was a great shot? Because I'm hearing both sides of the story when you read reviews or Twitter comments or things of that nature. So, how do you perceive it?
I mean, I feel like they made luck happen. I mean, I think the ball into Lucas was a great ball, although he did have to chase it and covered a lot of ground pretty quickly and got himself into a dangerous spot in the box. And then again, it wasn't obviously the most bulleted in pass, but it did the trick. And Theo was there for just kind of long enough making the run to interfere, to spook the goalie, whatever it is. And hey, I mean, it's, again, for a game like that where everything is just so weird, it seems really fitting that the opening goal was that weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm in shock from the Theo appreciation that Andy's showing here. I personally was waiting for him to backheel it over the goal somehow, but it worked out pretty well. I'm not sure if that was an intentional dummy or whether he just didn't make the contact that he was intending.
I think he just missed it. Yeah. I just think he fluffed it, but it didn't matter.
I mean, credit to Lucas, though, for putting the power on the shot /cross to at least have it end in the back of the net. Because he shot from a long way out.
Yeah. And the most important thing is it took a lot of the air out of the increasingly pressurized balloon that was happening in that game. There were probably 15 of us. It was actually a very good showing at the pub today for a Monday afternoon game, but all the regulars came out, and we all talked about like what will be the minute of 0-0 that you're going to actually start. Your sphincter's going to start to get a little uncomfortable, and I mean we didn't go into that much detail, but and most of us said about 20-25 minutes, and and it was 0-0 at the 25th minute, and I literally I'm like, okay, well, superstitious me, I'm going to change from standing on this side of the bar to over this side of the bar, and then within 20 seconds the goal went in. But yeah, a couple more minutes of that, and it would have been, especially with the number of free kicks and dead ball situations where really the difference between Arsenal and Sutton is nil. If they're pumping in a dead ball or a corner kick into our box, I don't feel that we're that much better of a team than they are. Those are those are prime goals against the run of play opportunities for Sutton. So as long as it was 0-0, even as long as it was 1-0, it was still high nerves. But that goal really did kind of let a lot of the air out because we were starting to let Sutton back into the game at that point after 10 minutes of pretty much bossing possession.
No,
right,
absolutely.
and the fouls. I think my favorite line from today. Somebody had tweeted, "Daka gets a yellow for a professional foul on someone who's not even a professional."
Well, and we'll get to the challenges in a little bit because I think that's definitely worthy of a conversation. Let's go to Theo's goal.
Well, before that, though, right before the end of the first half, what was David Ospina doing at the end of the first? I mean, did he see like Czech give the ball away to Fabregas a few weeks ago and be like, "Oh, I got to top this in a better situation"? I mean, any team in the top 4 divisions of the football league converts that boner into a goal. Luckily, we weren't playing a team in the top 4 divisions, but that was a David move. He did not deserve for that moment to be David Ospina because that was David had a huge boner right there.
Yeah, it was a shaky decision to pass the ball who's covered by 3 players and not just play it long. But, at the end of the day, it didn't result in a goal, and luckily the guy put it just wide, and he had a really poor first touch. You can tell that's why he's playing on a team that's 17th in the conference league. But
the Bananarama conference.
So as I was saying before, let's go on to Theo's goal. It was a great team goal. Definitely one of those Arsenal type of goals. I don't really, and I'll go to Phil first here, Mike. I don't really want to break down the goal so much, but it's his 100th goal for the club. And so I want to get into a conversation of Theo Walcott now has been at Arsenal for 12 seasons. That 100th goal basically equates for a goal every 3 games. Yeah. Is that good enough for an attacking player at Arsenal? Am I expecting too much from Theo? Should he be having 150 to 200 goals at this point in his career?
I mean, that would have been the expectation when he came on. I mean, if you had told him, yeah, you're going to get 100 goals, but it's going to take you 12 seasons to do that, do you think he would have been, happy or satisfied with that coming into it? I mean, absolutely not. I mean, yeah, I mean, again, he strikes me as, again, kind of a super sub player, but yet there's still, I feel in terms of, again, kind of looking back to the Bayern game and thinking where we want Arsenal to be. I mean, we're still, another couple of players away from that probably. And Theo's been, Theo's definitely one of those players I think who could be subbed by, say a Griezmann. Like that's ever going to happen. But still, that would be,
you think that would be an upgrade, Phil?
but
mild upgrade.
I'm just spitballing here,
but Phil brings up a good point, right? We've put so much investment into a Theo type player, and he's been such an Arsene favorite that stopped us from going out and maybe signing the young Griezmann, thinking to ourselves, or Arsene thinking to himself, hey, I've already got a player here that I'm relying on to be a Griezmann type player. And so I just wonder, when is enough, Mike? I mean, I'll ask you the same question. Am I expecting too much from Theo to be at the team for 12 seasons and only have 100 goals?
Well, you have high expectations from Theo. I mean, he's your boy. So, but I will say I looked at the numbers and in his last 7 seasons, he has 82 of his goals, starting 2010. I mean, the first 3 or 4, he was getting over that World Cup hangover of not getting to play at all in 2006 and, was still kind of doing his apprenticeship. And so, I mean, his goal scoring rate has been relatively good over the last 6 or 7 years. This season, he's got 15 goals in 22 games. But he's constantly missing time with injury. Unfortunately for him, not every year has been a contract year, so he's had a couple of off years when he hasn't had any motivation to play. But I don't think that we should overstate what his upside is. I think he's pretty much hitting his upside right now, but with this season.
So
looking back at 2007, 2008 doesn't really tell the whole story.
It doesn't, but even like you just said, like you play up to the strength of, okay, he scored 80 goals in the last, 8 seasons? So that's still 10 goals. That's okay, so 12, 13 goal average. If we looked back at those, how many of those goals have been goals that have changed games? How many of those goals have won us a game or put us into a position to turn a game around? I mean, I don't know. I can't go back, but I just feel like
I have no factual basis for that.
No. And so, I'm just curious. But when you compare him to the Robert Perez, Lynchburg, similar players, right? Same position. Those guys put balls in the back of the net when it mattered. And I just don't know if a player who's getting paid £140,000 a week.
Well, that's the thing.
Is warranted when he's only scoring these amount of goals. And I wonder, does a different manager get something different out of him? As Phil said, when he came in, the expectation was for him to score a lot more. Maybe that pressure was too much. I don't know. But, it's great that
when he switched from the 32 to the 14, I think he expected to be scoring a lot more often than once every 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 100 goals, I mean, it's absolutely a great feat, right? It's something that I'm sure a lot of players wish they could get to. I just thought it would happen a lot faster for him.
And I will say props to him for he got late just completely left out high and dry today with the pennant situation. Did you hear about that? At the beginning of the game, since he was our captain today, he walks to the center of the field to shake hands with the Sutton captain. Sutton captain has a Sutton pennant to hand to Theo. Theo's got nothing.
I noticed that there was only one.
What did you say?
I noticed that there was only one pennant. There was just a yellow one. So
Arsenal just didn't have one, which I don't understand whose fault that was. It certainly wasn't Theo's fault. But after the game, apparently he went into the Sutton locker room and showered in there. No, he signed a bunch of kids in there. He probably wanted to go to the nice warm showers, but signed some kids in there and made up for it. But that Theo the man has grown a lot more than Theo the player, which which is interesting to watch, but it doesn't really solve a lot of the issues that Andy rightfully brings up. So
so okay, if he turns
this is a guy who would never turn around and tell a fan that just told him to fuck off. He would come over and explain to him why that's not a very nice thing to say.
I don't think I told. Yeah, I think that was what happened. Anyway, if he turns a corner in his career and he starts bagging 15 goals a season, then that's the Theo we expect, right?
And he's still 27 or 28, so I mean,
no, he's still young. He's still young.
He can stay healthy. He could be very valuable to somebody else.
So we picked on the right wing. Now let's pick on the left wing. So let's go to so we'll go to Iwobi. For me today, I thought Iwobi was one of our weakest players on the pitch, and I think he's going to be an absolutely great player for Arsenal, and I can't wait to see him step into himself when he gets like to that moment where he sees a light and he goes, "This is me as a fucking player," because he's going to be unstoppable. Against Bayern, against Chelsea, at his age, you can tell why he can be poor, right? You can see that he just doesn't have it yet. But when you go up against Sutton, you're thinking, all right, this is a match where Iwobi's going to kind of come into his own. And I thought today he was absolutely terrible. Mike, I know we've talked about this the beginning of the season of putting Iwobi a little bit closer to the bench or maybe on it for a couple matches. I'm absolutely terrified when we play Liverpool in 10 days if he's on the pitch, because he's just not showing in big games that he can hack it. And if we're already losing Ozil, if we're playing ourselves out of having Sanchez in the game, we can't be lackluster. I think that we need to replace him. So, in your opinion, when we go to Anfield, who do you replace Iwobi with? Who do you put on either side of Ozil in that game?
I mean, first of all, I felt the same way about Iwobi going into the Bayern game, which was I was just absolutely devastated when I saw him in the starting lineup because I didn't think he would be up for it. But
I thought every Arsenal fan expected to see Welbeck against Bayern.
Yeah. At Anfield, you got to put Danny Welbeck out there with him, and I would put him on both sides of Ozil against Liverpool if that was possible. I mean, his fitness and his recovery. I hear he played 70 minutes yesterday in a U23 game on grass because they didn't want him playing on the pitch. I'm fully behind that decision.
Yeah.
But if he's up to 70 minutes of game time, which everyone knows that's how long you need to play before you can be subbed out for Arsenal. If he's at that point now, 2 weeks from now especially, you've got to start him against Liverpool because he's got that want, that desire, the professionalism, the tracking back. Alex Iwobi's kind of at the same point he was at in late October, right before the North London derby, when I, you said I was tearing into him. I just said he looked a little jaded, looked like he needed a few games either coming off the bench or sitting entirely to kind of regain his focus, which he did, and I think it worked. And I think he's kind of back at that point again. We have the wingers that are healthy now who need game time. We got Welbeck. We have Lucas, who seemed healthy today. Ox, to give him that time off and recharge his brain a little bit. And you would expect him at his age to be poor against Bayern. So why the fuck was he starting that game then?
Yeah, I don't know. Phil, what are your thoughts? If you could choose, first of all, did you get the same impression that Iwobi was a little bit poor today? And if you had an opportunity, who would you start against Liverpool?
I mean, I would say that Iwobi's inconsistent. I mean, he has his moments. I mean, on the Theo goal that you were talking about, I mean, it was his key pass to Monreal that sprung Theo for the goal. I mean, he was the one that was really, that unlocked that goal. But I mean, he's still a very young player, and I think he's going to come into his own, and I think he's going to do well. But he's just, he's absolutely not there yet. What I would do for Liverpool is I would start Giroud, and I would have Alexis on the left, and I would either put Theo or maybe Ox on the right.
Yeah,
so
that's
kind of returning to the month or two ago lineup.
Yeah, I mean, Giroud's shown up big in games. So I mean, I think he needs to start, or at least needs the kind of 60, 70 minutes to try to create.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout. I mean, the Liverpool defense have been so shaky. Maybe pumping the ball into the box and having Giroud attack those headers could be good. Now, Phil, I'm going to ask you this question, and it sounds like you have a lot of in the know knowledge. You write books. It sounds like you're an expert. So I'm going to go to you first on this, and then Mike second. Does Sanchez have a clause in his contract that says he must play 20 minutes a game if he's healthy?
I believe that's the only explanation for him coming on.
I mean, unbelievable. Now, Wenger did say after the match that there was no risk bringing him on. This is the quote.
None whatsoever.
This is right, absolutely right. He's a guy,
and then he got crassly tackled like about 10 minutes.
This is his exact quote. He is a guy who has a strong body. I think on this pitch, it is the guy who does not have good coordination, who is heavy on his feet, who is in trouble. Alexis is more of a guy who has very good coordination. He is light on his feet. I don't think it was a risk. I think that is the biggest kiss-assery I've read.
I like how you said it's a guy who doesn't have who's heavy on his feet, doesn't have coordination. Meanwhile, he's got Per Mertesacker on the bench for this game just in case. So clearly, that's a little after the fact hindsight for him to be able to say that. But
hey, we joke about Per being on the bench, but that's fucking great to see him back on the bench because I tell you something, Mike. Last week in Bayern. If that shit would have happened with number 4 on the field, heads would have been fucking rolling. Dude would have been up people's asses, fucking like a puppet master, getting their shit together, and you know he would. There's no way.
Puppet master.
Oh, there is no way Ozil would have played like he did against Bayern. There's no way those players wouldn't have went over and thanked the fans. That's what we were missing was leadership, and so I'm glad to see him back on the training ground, and I'm glad that he's going to start getting some. I don't think he's going to start over, Kostafi or whatever the fuck people are calling the two of them, but it's great to have that leadership back.
I'd be ready to see him in there in center back ahead of Gabriel, though, if push comes to shove. Although I'd rather see Holding than either one of the two of them. But
I don't know.
Did you see him in the dressing room photo? This was the photo that I was waiting for ever since I heard it was going to be Arsenal going to Sutton.
Was that the one where he was just kind of like, where the fuck are we?
It was like this total WTF expression. Yeah, barely fitting in the Sutton away dressing room.
I was going to say, was he crouched over?
Nobody.
Practically, yeah. He's just kind of looking around. It's like all the uniforms are out on the benches. It's just like really claustrophobic angles that they took a photo with, and Per's in the middle of it, just like, what is this?
What is this bullshit? That was my German.
That was great.
Hey, it was as good as your arson impression.
Yeah, as good and no better. Do you think Alexis is there going to be a situation where he pushes it too far and we lose him for a while? No, I mean, non-contractually. I mean, just from injury.
I mean, didn't it happen to a degree last season?
Yeah, the Norwich game, I think, last season.
Where he fell into the pit?
Right before I went over there to see 3 or 4 games and didn't get to see them.
The death pit with the spikes on the side of the field.
Yeah, and then that wasn't even what did him in. It
right.
was after that. But yeah, is that about to happen again? Considering 2 months ago we were all under the impression that his calf muscle was hanging to the bone by a string. And he's done nothing.
Yeah, it'll be
90 minutes.
It'll be about minute 75 after we make the last sub against Liverpool.
Yeah, probably. But you know what though? Power to him, man. He probably, unlike the German who is now on vacation again since Christmas. I mean, he wants to play. He's going into the manager, and I'm sure he went to the manager and said, "I want to be in the squad for Sutton." I bet had he not gone into that room, I bet Wenger would have given him a rest. But hey, all the boys get 10 days now, which is nice. So speaking of the match, we kind of had a guy trying to steal the show a little bit, and I thought the referee was fucking terrible. No yellow cards for any Sutton players were given today, I don't think. And there were definitely 2 or 3 challenges that easily warranted yellow cards. The one on Iwobi in particular, had Xhaka made that challenge on a Sutton player, it would have been a straight red. Absolute straight red. The guy went in 2-footed, and had he called Iwobi correctly, it's a broken leg. And what frustrated me the most about it was when the commentator on TV was like, "Oh, that was a great challenge. That's a Conference League challenge." It's like, no, that's a bone-breaking challenge, man.
But that's the conference for you right there. You have to. Yeah, no,
but it's not a conference official, is it? It's right, a Premier. No. It's a Premier League referee, And I just thought it was definitely one-sided, and it was just really irked me the way the referee was controlling the match, because Sutton were definitely playing way more physical than we were. And I put it on my highlight list because I thought, man, this is kind of slowing the game down a little bit for us. Every time we touched them, they went down.
Yeah, and part of that is probably strategy. I mean, of course, if you are Sutton and you are that outmatched athletically, that's probably how you can kind of even things. But yeah, I mean, the ref is supposed to be there to control that and to call people out on that. I
don't think it really got out of hand. I mean, I was personally in shock that Xhaka didn't get a second yellow in the game, considering his first one came after only 24 minutes. I mean, the way he was going into people was a little reckless, a la Granit Xhaka. But I thought that the refereeing was for once was fair enough. I mean, you're going to get strong challenges. You have to protect the players, all of them, and protect the integrity of the game. And I just didn't see it as being that one-sided. But I tend to err on the side of, only griping about the refereeing when it is like Mike Dean level bullshit. Just because I want the team to be able to rise above those kinds of factors. And it's good that nobody got their leg broken, but I didn't think it was that outrageous.
No, I disagree. I think if you're going to call it one way, you got to call it the other. And maybe the whole Xhaka not getting a second yellow is because the ref did think to himself at halftime, well, I'm going to just let both sides play a little bit more. I will. You got to give credit to the Sutton players. It must have been absolutely frustrating for them to have this huge match. They don't have any possession on the ball. And to not have any real brass challenges, or besides which was, I think the defensive play of the year, the shadow headbutt on the Ox when he completely fucking smoked that one dude. Did you guys see that?
No, I'm not recalling this.
So the Ox wins the ball in the midfield. He completely goes down. He takes it out wide. Completely nutmegs one of the players, and he just knew I'm left for dead. So he shadow headbutts the Ox, thinking that might throw him off. And I was like, "Fucking
I
genius."
missed the headbutt. I know the play you're talking about, and that was vintage Ox right there.
Yeah.
With his speed and power, but I missed the headbutt.
Yeah, it wasn't like there was no way in any realm of possibility he would have actually headbutted the Ox, but you could tell he was just thinking, if I do this and it catches him in the corner of the eye, maybe it will throw him off, but it didn't. It was great. So rumors are circulating the internet that a betting site, Sunbets, had a friend of the podcast, Wayne Shaw, at 18-1 that he was going to eat a pie during the match.
It was only 8-1.
It was 8-1. Okay, so I really hope he put a 5,000-pound bet down on that happening.
On himself.
I mean, that was obviously my favorite part of the game. Phil, you got some intel on this, don't you?
Obviously, social media just erupted with joy when that happened. And, it was apparently, the Sun had that. So it's probably a Sun tie. And they were all over. They did I think a one match sponsorship of Sutton, because Sutton certainly doesn't have, Sutton doesn't have advertising boards.
Well, their normal sponsor is Green Go Waste, who agreed financially to fuck off to the back of the uniform for this one, so Sunbet could be on the front. But Sunbet, how shady is it if they're in cahoots about a bet that's actually paying people money and he knows about it and does that? I just thought it was great. I'm surprised he waited until it was final that he couldn't go in the game anymore. I would have been doing it at halftime. Apparently, he was in the bar at halftime.
Yeah, he was in the bar pouring drinks.
Well, that is technically part of his job, I believe.
Well,
Speaking of Wayne Shaw, anyone who hadn't listened to it, we invite you to go back and, since we interviewed him as the first American news outlet, if we could call us that, to interview Wayne Shaw a few weeks ago, which you can find on our YouTube and iTunes. Of course, now he's made the rounds. Small outlets like Men in Blazers and the BBC and things like that have interviewed him. But just don't forget, we were the first Americans to bring you Wayne Shaw.
We were, and there have been some requests to see if we can get a follow up with him, and so maybe we will try and do that when the dust settles a little bit.
I'm going to work on that. I may be seeing him in a month or so if he's around when over there, and we'll try to set something up.
So just quick, Mike and Phil, let's quickly talk about Lucas. I thought he had a really good game again today. There was some pre-match buzz and news that came out that Lucas's agent commented saying that he wants to leave no matter who the manager is. He didn't settle at Arsenal, and he wants to go and play with more minutes. A few hours later, some more reputable journalists came out and removed the doubt, quoting his agent saying no such thing was said, and he appears happy at Arsenal. Does Lucas warrant more playing time at this point in the season? Whether it be on the left, whether it be on the right, whether it be up front, does he warrant more playing time? Mike?
Yeah. I mean, clearly. I mean, all he does when he goes in there is works hard and scores goals when the opportunity arises, and it goes through Theo's legs. And I mean, it's. I had read that his agent said that he never gave an interview to the newspaper that quoted him. I didn't specifically hear that he said he never made those comments, but I do agree it's probably what we like to call fake news. But it's awfully believable, though. I mean, I do hope that he sticks with Arsenal for at least another season and fights for his place. I mean, unless we bring in a quote unquote world class striker or winger, a la Griezmann, or some AKA people that we're not going to get. I would want to see him fight and stay healthy because he's had a couple of niggling injuries over the course of the year that seem to have pulled his momentum back every time he was on in the ascendancy. But definitely warrants more playing time for no other reason than his work rate. But he's earned it. He's earned it. Now who he takes the time away from is the thing, and the obvious choice is Iwobi in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely needs to at least come on more in the substitute role. Again, I mean, he does also have the Albatross, the number 9 jersey he's wearing. But
yeah, how's that going?
He came in relatively late in the window, and it's going to take him some time to acclimate, obviously.
No, absolutely. And what frustrates me the most is we're so desperate in the summer to sign a striker, and an out-and-out striker at that. And we do sign Lucas, and now we do it later in the window, and obviously we do it post-Vardy. So in my mind, I'm thinking if Vardy were to play for Arsenal, we wouldn't be playing him on the wing as we're doing with Lucas. And then I also wonder, is this a signing?
Oh, we probably would be.
Maybe. But is Lucas a signing that Arsene made, or was it a signing that was made for Arsene to appease our fan base and bring in another striker, knowing that Welbeck was going to be out for this long? But I feel like Lucas is in a part of his career at Arsenal where we have to give him the opportunity to play against some of these big sides. And I think he's warranted that with his current play. And we can't say to ourselves, well, what would have been different if Lucas would have played against Bayern or Chelsea, right? As Mike just said, Iwobi's starting over him, and we're seeing the same production. So why not give him an opportunity to make a run? Liverpool being such a hard team to play at Anfield, why not give him the opportunity to run his ass off and just see what happens?
I mean, Theo and Iwobi are going to be flanking Alexis against Liverpool, but I mean, would it kill us to start Welbs and Lucas?
Something different?
Welbs and Lucas on either side of Alexis. If Giroud's not going to be starting that game, then I mean that starting lineup that starting line. It's almost like an NHL line. You would call them the work rate line.
Yeah,
because those three are going to get the work done. They're not going to. We're not going to fail to have offense against Liverpool for any reason other than. Our midfield and our link-up play, because those guys are going to work their ass off against Liverpool if they start the game. And I just, if they burn themselves out by 65th minute, 70th minute, then you have Theo, then you have Iwobi, you have Ox that you can bring on. And this is the time to change that up.
So you brought up a good point. You've got that work rate.
I did?
Yeah, very rarely does that happen.
It's the first time every 27 podcasts when I bring up a good point.
So, but you just said you put Lucas, Sanchez, and Welbeck up front, and you've got an absolute workhorse unit there, right? but you're forgetting about the workhorse that we now have as a central midfielder. Because I guarantee you, if everyone is healthy, the Ox and Xhaka are going to get an opportunity to play with one another. Xhaka will sit deep, and I'm sure the Ox is going to just fucking love life because he's going to get to roam. And we see when the Ox plays well, he does a really good job. And so I'm wondering, if you've got those three up front, and then you've got him sitting just behind Ozil, just being that extra workhorse, that's a dangerous front 4 or 5 that we can have. And then you've got Xhaka sitting deep in front of the defense, and that looks like a dangerous team.
Right. And the thing, too, is, in terms of work rate, this is, again, Liverpool is a team that you need a work rate offense against. Because they are going to press. That's how they're coached. That's how they're trained. But in terms of, central midfield and roaming, we had a guy like that called Aaron Ramsey. And when is he coming back?
He may be healthy for Liverpool. I haven't talked to the theoretical physio of the team recently, but I heard he was on the verge of coming back. And you know that Wenger, unlike any other player in the team, Wenger loves to throw him right back into the lineup.
Yeah. I was just about to say
when he's returning from injury and burn him right out again. So he'll start the game in midfield with Xhaka. And then in 15th minute, when Chamberlain comes on for him, then we'll see what we want to see.
Oh God!
Right.
And there's no chance that the starting midfield 2 for that game is not going to be Coquelin and Xhaka.
Oh no, completely.
It's at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, March 4th. The sound that you hear will be my head just banging against the wall over and over again as Iwobi and Coquelin are in the starting lineup.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I'll tell you what, I would love to see Xhaka and Ox do something with one another in a big match, because I think I think that
that is sick, dude.
I think that's a great partnership waiting to happen. So we're through to the next round. Draw happened yesterday. We know that we've got Lincoln, who are first in the Conference League, so 16 places above Sutton.
Bring it.
Yeah, and it's going to be a completely different match being at the Emirates. They're going to be on a way bigger pitch than they're expecting. I think we go out with, again, a stronger lineup, probably very similar today. Maybe I bet Ozil's going to start playing a little bit more now. So if you look at the remaining fixtures in the FA Cup, likely Scum, Chelsea, City, and us go into the semis. So with Champions League being over, what type of lineup do you guys expect, barring major injuries, when we play Lincoln? Phil, do you feel like we're going to match what we did today, or do you feel like, echo my sentiment, where we might start seeing Ozil drop in now that we're getting a little bit closer to this cup final?
Maybe a slight upgrade from what we did today. I thought today was a little bit, and again, like you were talking about getting the dance team and not being really impressed with the goal celebrations, but it would have been just, a little callous, I think, to go full bore celebration. I think they're going to take it seriously. Again, a win gets them to Wembley, and I guess, kind of a repeat of the Sutton experience. I imagine Lincoln's stadium is a little bit bigger, but probably not by much.
It's about twice the size, actually.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
But still.
And the field is twice the size as well, apparently. But yeah, first, I love how you call it the Conference League, by the way. That's like combining it's the Vanarama, Bananarama, Shamalama, Ding Dong National League. And Lincoln is 16 places above Sutton, but there's no comparison between these two teams. As soon as we drew Sutton, I felt, we fell in love with them. There's so many wonderful stories, the ex-Gooners that are on their team, Wayne Shaw, part-time players whose day jobs are builders and groundskeepers and stuff, and they've never been in the Football League before. Lincoln, on the other hand, is everything that Sutton is not. Lincoln is a club that I think they're all full-time professionals. Sutton has a lot of part-timers on their team. They've spent most of their 100-plus year history in the Football League, whereas Sutton never had gone to that point. And, in fact, they can't because of the size of their stadium and their pitch. Fuck Lincoln. We're going to tear them apart and feel good doing it. no interviews with their players, no friendships. We're not doing this the same way. They are public enemy number one. But if you take into consideration their games from their cup run and the fact that they've got a couple games in hand, they're running away with the league. They're going to be back in League Two next season after being gone for 5 or 6 years, which is unusual for them. They just beat a Burnley team at Turf Moor that's only lost 3 out of 14 Premier League games there this season, one of which was they barely lost to us. And Burnley started a pretty top first team 11. And not only did they beat them in the last minute of the game, but they outplayed them for most of the game. So, I mean, if we were traveling to Lincoln, I'd be legitimately concerned. But, if anyone thinks that this game is going to be easy at the Emirates and a walkover, think again. So, I mean, it's Lincoln is not to be ignored, but there's no fairy tale that's going to happen here. We need to pound these fuckers.
Well, speaking of them not being Sutton, as often I do when Mike goes on his long rants, I quickly jump onto Twitter and just kind of see what's happening. And someone posted, I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. So after the match, Budweiser did Ray Parlow went in and gave the guys from Sutton a bunch of beers. And I think part of it was they were live streaming it. Well, there was a Sutton player just completely naked. There's 3,000 people watching them in the locker room, and dude is just standing there with his cock and balls out.
Who was it? Do we know which
no,
was
no
it Rory
idea.
Deacon?
It might be, but I'm gonna retweet this. But absolutely fucking genius. Absolutely,
right.
3,000 people watching, and dude just sitting there, fully just nude for the world to see.
Well, I'm glad that you got something out of my rant then. But lineup-wise, yeah, I'd expect to see some changes. Maybe Welbeck comes back because it's a cup game, and they're probably not going to use him at all against Liverpool or Bayern for whatever goddamn reason. But so he'll push Iwobi to the number 10, and Mesut will be on the bench. Yeah, there'll be some changes, but I think they'll go at least as strong. Maybe 1 or 2 more first-teamers thrown back in there. Maybe Hector Bellerin plays, something like that.
So, cock on the field?
Yeah, maybe we will see a cock on the field. I don't want you to.
Hopefully, it doesn't try to dribble too much.
Oh my god, that was terrible.
Wah, wah, wah. All
right. Quickly discuss Ozil. Not a huge debate here, or just a quick conversation. Phil, what are your thoughts? Dude's getting time off again. He just had time off at Christmas for supposedly having the flu. It's literally been like 2.5 months. What are your thoughts on him getting some rest?
I don't know. I hope it helps. I mean, I love him still, but obviously the frustrations around him are mounting for, everybody, obviously. So himself included. So I'm hoping that he can get his head right, and again, I mean, we're, obviously the league looks like this kind of dim ship passing by. Who knows what happens next over the next few games. But, the FA Cup, I mean, definitely seems within reach, and I'd like us to get one. I think Ozil's going to be a really big part of that. So hopefully he figures out what he needs to figure out and gets right with God or whatever and can make a run.
Yeah, I mean, he also got 2 weeks off in November when Germany left him off their international break squad. I mean, the dude gets more rest than fucking Winnie the Pooh. But I mean, I've never seen someone of superstar status that has such a wide range of form that comes purely down to where his head is at.
Yeah.
That's a little disconcerting for someone that's one of your best players. And I get the fact that he's better suited as the 3rd or 4th best player on his team, not the 1st or 2nd. As he was when he played for Real Madrid. He was the 3rd or 4th best player maybe on that team. But not every team is full of Galacticos. So, I mean, he's certainly not going to be surrounded by better players next season when he's shipped off to Galatasaray or Shanghai, Shenhua or whatever. But, I mean, he's got to figure it out because whatever it is, whatever the system is that's not going his way, whatever anything is, he's got to at least start showing some effort in a way that a layman like myself who doesn't necessarily understand the game as well as people who have been around it constantly can see.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a superstar, you have to impress the layman, not the soccer experts. That's the moral of the story.
Right. So I'm assuming at this point being February 20th, which is sad to say, FA Cup and top 4 is our main concern. Would you say that's accurate, Phil?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad.
I keep waiting for Chelsea to drop some game in a fluke loss, as can happen at times in these title races, but it's just not happening. Right. Chelsea's just not happening.
Yeah, right. I mean it's Groundhog's Day again, and I mean you asked the question a few weeks ago, Andy, about would you rather have the FA Cup or top 4 finish if you had to choose between the two. And at this point, seeing how things have progressed in the meantime, I would definitely choose an FA Cup if I had to choose between the two. Sure. Obviously, I'd prefer both, but I mean, this team needs some silverware right now. Whether it's to send Arsene off with silverware, or whether it's just to have a happy end of May after what had turned into a rather rough season, that's really the need right now.
Well, I think to keep the likes of Sanchez, we're going to need Champions League football. If Arsene does leave, that doesn't help, especially if he leaves when we don't have Champions League football, because Alexis is definitely going to want to play at the highest level. And I hate to say it, but I think I can see him in a PSG shirt next year. But we at this point, for the sake of our team, I think I would choose a top 4 position over FA Cup, because I think that would maybe help keep him. So we're going to go to a new feature today. It's going to be called the Leave-O-Meter, and I'm going to hand it over to Mike to introduce this new feature. Now, Mike, you've introduced a lot of features that have not really impressed the fan base of Gooners in USA, so I'm hoping that this one does better.
We've never gotten the actual feedback per se, and so I'm just going to assume all of my ideas are popular and that people just don't have a computer.
I just don't
to reach
share
out
the feedback with you.
Exactly. Pretty much there was a very famous news conference this week that had the media and people all over the U.S. and the rest of the world buzzing. Very powerful and controversial figure. Some might say a little dictatorial, like held court with a few dozen reporters and said some very controversial things in his own typical speaking style. And I am, of course, speaking of Arsene Wenger. And he made some comments about his future, about whether he would continue to coach, which he said he will, so on and so forth. So, it kind of got me thinking that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that he's not going to re-sign. I've been saying all season that he will. So we're going to do a Leave-O-Meter, kind of a week-to-week check-in, a temperature taking of sorts, to gauge your gut feeling on whether he's going to stay or leave. So on a scale from 0 to 100, with 0 being staying and 100 being leaving, what is your Leave-O-Meter currently at, Andy?
0.
You're positive he's staying?
Yep.
You think he's signed already?
Yep. The comment he made today saying that he had 1 year left in coaching, and I think I texted this to you earlier. In my opinion, it means I'm signing a 1 year contract with Arsenal, and I'm going to put in the position of my predecessor and get everything ready to go, because he's not going to just walk away on the club after 20 years. The other thought on that is this could be his last year. He takes over for Barcelona for 1 year, wins them a Champions League, and then he retires, and then he's done with football, which is very likely to happen. But no, I think he's already signed, and I think we're going to see him announce that in April, May-ish.
Yeah. Well, I would have said 0 a few weeks ago, but I'm going to go with I'm actually going to go with 60. Saying I think there's more. There's actually probably tipping towards leaving at the end of the season, which is a quantum shift from what I thought earlier. But just the fact that it's still open feels a lot different than it did the year that we won the first FA Cup, when it was still open at that point. No one really thought he was going to leave. So Phil, what are your thoughts on the Leave-O-Meter?
I'd say right now about a 35. Again, to your point about the comments and about saying there's one more year, there's all sorts of signs that he puts forth that he's not going anywhere. But I just think, especially after the Bayern loss and it being as, sort of humiliating as it was, this can't be fun. So, and if there's a chance, again, that's, again, the whole, I mean, you make a good point in terms of top four and, wanting to try to keep Alexis happy. But, what a mic drop, like a final, FA Cup victory against like a Chelsea or a Spurs or a City would be. It would just be such a good way to go out. And to be able to have that kind of moment and to be able to engineer and orchestrate that, would be, to me, seems like that would be a really good way for him to go out. Again, though, is he going to have that kind of judgment? Is he just going to have the sort of stubbornness to say that, I'm going to keep on, I'm going to make this work, and my way is going to work eventually one of these years.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So we're kind of all over the map on the Leave a Meter. We'll see how that changes week to week. Or maybe you just won't hear the segment again next week.
So we have time for one.
What is your Leave a Meter on the Leave a Meter right now?
I think I know Andy's answer to that.
We do have time for one quick question. So Mike, I'll hand it over to you because this is specific to Phil.
Yeah, Phil, with your MLS experience and combined with your Arsenal savvy, Jake from Virginia asks for Phil, as someone who specializes in writing about the MLS and also is an Arsenal supporter, what would you tell an MLS outsider about what 3 MLS teams you should adopt and love as an Arsenal supporter, and which 2 teams should be hated just purely on a history of being a fan of Arsenal?
Yeah, I love this question.
If you're overseas and you're needing to pick a team and you have nowhere to get started, what are you doing?
Okay, so the 3 teams you should like. I mean, the first one that seems pretty obvious if you're an Arsenal fan would be the New York Red Bulls. Again, they're one of the original teams. They wear red. Thierry Henry played there. Certainly anybody who went to Red Bull Arena in 2014 knows it's a great stadium and knows that, they can beat some pretty formidable opponents. Bradley Wright Phillips plays there, so there's obviously an additional kind of Arsenal connection there. They're also perennially one of the top teams, but they've never won a title in 21 seasons of trying.
Good.
And their original nickname was the Metro Stars, which is painfully uncool, and fans will still react to things going wrong by saying that's still Metro.
We say that here in DC a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. So, and then the second team I'm going to suggest is FC Dallas. Also wears red. They're the most recent Supporter Shields winners. So technically the Supporter Shield is like winning the league and having the best regular season record. But because MLS gears off playoffs, it's really like being an FA Cup winner. So it's kind of that equivalency. And then they play an up-tempo soccer that reminds me of Arsenal on a good day. And there were untimely injuries last year that prevented them from winning a trophy. So again, very, very Arsenal. And then the third one, they're a brand new team and kind of an oddball thing here, but I'm going to give them some love because I really like them and I really like their fans. It's a group called Atlanta United. They wear red and black. They are a brand new team. They have some familiar EPL faces. Kenwyn Jones, who's played for favorites like Sunderland and Stoke. And then Brad Guzan, obviously. Well, he's not there quite yet, but they're trying to work that out to get them there. And then one of their supporters groups is called Footy Mob, after Goody Mob, which is pretty cool. And if you're putting teams in around the world in alphabetical order, Arsenal and Atlanta are pretty close.
There you go. Okay. There you go. So who are we going to hate?
Oh, well, the obvious choice is NYCFC.
Yeah.
They wear blue. They're owned by Man City and the Yankees.
Well, that's a lethal combination.
Kind of an axis of evil. Yeah, they obviously have a fierce rivalry with Red Bulls. Frank Lampard played for them. David Villa still plays for them. And they recently had a defender named Angelino, who was the only number 69 in the league.
However, their coach.
Yes. Oh, is Patrick Vieira. Right.
Yeah. So that is an interesting tie. We're going to hate them, but then we'll just, hey, coach, what's going on, baby?
Right. And then obviously the Galaxy. They wear white. So that's the closest thing to a Spurs jersey. Gerrard's played with them, and they're just kind of Chelsea-like to me. They're kind of like if Chelsea dressed up like Spurs.
And Robbie Keane, Robbie Keane
plays for them as well, right?
All right, excellent. So that it's a little MLS primer for anyone who hasn't already picked a team. And I recall, if I'm recalling this correctly, when we had Danny from Bergkamp Wonderland, he was a Portland Timbers fan, and yes. I don't remember the reason why. But so some people have already latched onto a team.
And Chris is a Chicago Fire supporter.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, wow. That must have happened early. No, the Timbers are a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, again, and the thing about MLS is it's really wide open play. I mean, the playoffs make it absolutely interesting right down to the end. I mean, the one thing that to me is kind of I mean, obviously I love Arsenal, I love Premier League, but the one thing that's kind of a drag is when you have, kind of a runaway team like Chelsea this year who might lock up the title in March. Then the last 2 months of the season are kind of, we're going to be top four. Whereas with MLS, you have the playoffs and it's kind of everything goes until the end. And you've had some really incredible finishes over the last few years. Like there was a game a couple of years ago between, SKC in Portland that went 11 players deep in PKs. You had goalie on goalie action at the end. So much fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, MLS getting started. The new season getting started 2 weeks, right?
Yep. And if you want to know more about what happened the first 20 years, United States Soccer is the book.
Absolutely.
You can get that on Amazon. You can get that at a bunch of bookstores everywhere. Just kind of what I prefer, but can't find it in the bookstore. And they won't order it for you, then just go to Amazon.
Pick it up and just slide your way right into MLS fandom for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm sighing because now we got to go into the picks. The picks are not my favorite part of the podcast. We had a week off last week, and it was the greatest week of my life. But we'll just cover the fact. Yeah. Got to get it done. So, Andy, you're still at 61. The guest spot holding up second at 58, and I am bringing up the relegation zone at 54. And this week we have 5 games, none of which we are guaranteed that Arsenal will not win next weekend and that they won't lose next weekend because they don't play next weekend. So who do we got going in this week? You ready to pick some games?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, West Ham at Watford is the first one. And they were pretty much all shit games of the week this week, so this one won't be our specific shit game. But I'm going to go with 1-1 in this game. And like Andy, I will not give any details about it. How will you pick it, Andy?
I'm going to go 2-1 West Ham.
Okay. Going with his brother-in-law there, or family member's father.
I think Watford's going to win 2-0, and West Ham fans will pray for death or for Alan Pardew to return, whichever is worse.
Nice. So 2-0 to Watford, you said?
Yep.
Excellent. Yep. Okay. Bournemouth at West Brom. I have this. I think that Bournemouth is hitting a bit of a rough patch, and if they aren't, I'm just going to say that they are. West Brom's going to take this one 3-1 with a hat trick from Solomon Rondon because he's the only guy I know on the team.
Yeah, this is a tough one because both teams can really hurt you. West Brom are on great form, but I'm going to go 2-2.
2-2.
Okay.
All right.
And I had to do a little research because this seemed like such a horrible game that I needed any kind of edge I could get. And they played twice this season, one in the Prem and then one in the Cup, and it's been 1-0 Bournemouth both times. So I'm gonna go with that scoreline again.
Nice, because past performance does predict future results.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, Swansea at Chelsea. 4-0 Chelsea. I mean, what's the point in picking anything other than that at this point?
Yeah, I was going to go 3-0. I mean, it's Swansea.
And it's Chelsea. Swansea, though, working their way up to the Europa League spots, though, after their new hire. But it's not going to happen this week.
Nope.
All right. And Phil, what do you think?
I have pure evil winning 2-0. Diego Costa gets a late goal in the first half, and then someone annoying, maybe Pedro, scores midway through the second half.
Excellent. I love the picks. By the way, I completely forgot to even look at the games until the podcast, so I'm a little without them. So thanks for filling in the.
This week, though, why bother?
Yeah, I mean it's just kind of like you just root for a bunch of injuries this week. All right, so. Next game, speaking of why bother, Stoke at Spurs. I'm going to go 2-0 to the Scum. They're playing at home.
Yeah, I was going to go 2-1 to the Scum.
Okay. And what are you going to?
I'll give him the 1-0.
Okay.
Harry Kane penalty kick.
How long will his mouth just be gaping open before the kick is taken?
Seriously.
About 12 to 14 seconds.
Yeah, that is the betting line in Vegas right now. Liverpool at Leicester is our final game of the week. Liverpool at Leicester, preparing for our big matchup against them the following week. Leicester's just absolute shit right now. I don't know what is going on up there, but I mean, they removed one player from that team and the whole thing fell apart.
Like Jenga.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was picturing. It was like all these, old former non-league player bricks just falling down to the ground as soon as Conte leaves. But and I don't see anything being different this week. It's going to be 3-1 Liverpool.
Yeah, I think Liverpool will win. I'm going to go 2-0.
Yeah, I had 3-1 as well. So, and Leicester going from champions to championship in a year.
Dude, that is legitimately looking like it's going to happen.
You
have to give props to George, who on a podcast that no one has heard, our very first podcast, I believe, we did a top 4 and bottom 3 prediction, and he did at that moment. He picked Leicester to be relegated, and it was more out of spite than anything else. But
sure.
He's starting to look pretty prescient, if that's the right word at this point.
That's exactly the right word, yeah.
So we get to preview no game this weekend because we have a week off, but we do not have a week off from podcasting. We're actually excited to welcome in some guys I've been following for quite some time. Tom from the Gooner Talk TV, who had me on last week. After the Bayern game, and Craig, who was the founder of Gooner Talk TV, and now has a new podcast with Mems, who most people are probably familiar with, that's called Same Old Arsenal. So you can see the tone of that podcast. And it's a good one, so check it out. And we're expecting to have the two of them on next weekend. And because there's no game, we should have plenty of time to tackle some of these topics that everyone's going to be talking about it. So Phil, I appreciate you joining us. Thank you for being on this week. It was good to see you last week.
Yeah, thank you, Phil.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was really fun. And again, yeah, I mean, this is kind of a rough part of the season, but this makes it a little more fun being able to come on and talk to you guys about everything.
Absolutely. And give us the website again for Howler so that we can read your stuff again.
Oh, yeah, it's whatahowler.com, and then, of course, MLSsoccer.com for the MLS coverage, including a story that I did this past week about a Sounders fan who said that he would get Celine Dion tattooed on his butt if Sounders won the MLS Cup, and they did, and he did.
Well, we want pictures or it didn't happen.
Anyway. There were pictures, and my editor said, "Oh, we have got to crop these." Put a real tight spot on it.
Gentlemen, have a good week. Thank you for listening, and come on, you Gooners. Join in the banter through our social media outlets. You can like us on Facebook at Gooners in USA. Follow us on Twitter at Gooners in USA. Send us an email at gooners@goonersinusa.com. Check out our website, which is www.goonersinusa.com. You can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, and please send us questions, comments, suggestions, or anything you'd like addressed on the pod. Come on, you Gooners.